Brilliant. Really excited to be here today. At the AI Journal, we focus a lot, and a big passion of mine is understanding AI products, how to take them to market, how to build the strategy around them. And I mean, there's a lot of conversations we're having at the moment with Fortune 500 leadership teams on how to develop it the correct way. And I was really excited to be on this panel alongside everyone else here to look at exactly how we can build better products around AI. But I do have a question before we start. So something we're doing a lot of research at the AI Journal at the moment. I'd love to know if you can do a show of hands, and it might help us out here on the panel today. How many of you are part of a consumer-orientated company at the moment? A few of you. And how many of you are serving enterprise or SMB? And I'm curious to know who the rest of you serve or sell to. So be exciting to kick off, and obviously we're joined by Fran, Tariq, and Etienne. And I mean, just quickly, when we got here today to learn about the product, how to improve product, I mean, I know that's what Pendo does, and I have a load of questions that I want to go down the line and look at. I really do think AI is something that can be used as a tool for competitive advantage. We're seeing a lot of use cases. I mean, I see it as a year of implementation, not successful implementation all the time, but there's a lot of things happening where you're seeing new products come in, especially from dominating areas, dominating brands in certain domains. But I'd love to start with closest to me, so with you, Etienne, and it was something we've talked about and looked at. What AI feature and product at the moment are you getting most excited about? What's driving your business forward? What are you looking at? What's your outlook on it at the moment? And then we'll go down the line.
Something that has been quite transformative recently is the ability for machine to understand human. So we worked a lot on that. Algolia is a search company, and when we do search, we try to understand what users want. So while we are a SaaS company, we focus still a lot on the consumer by delivering search product, and our ability to understand what the user wants. Queries are getting longer and longer. Sorry, more and more complex. So for us, we are working a lot on that. We've released a product called Neural Search that allows us to understand the user, their query, the context, stitch everything together to retrieve the right product. And the other thing, obviously, when we talk about AI at the moment, I think we want to say a lot Gen AI. And technology is there, it's working. I mean, clearly, ChatGPT is amazing. Now, what people are trying to figure out is it useful for the consumer? So what I'm excited about is supporting B2C company, anyone who wants to do search, figure out where Gen AI is useful. I think we are now at an age of experimentation. Experimentation on that with accelerating. So I'm excited to see what will come out of that.
Yeah. Tariq, I'd love to know what you're thinking.
Yeah, great. Actually, I don't need that, so have on, that's fine. Yes, I think my take on this is purely from the generative AI space, I would say, not the entire AI spectrum, so to speak. The most useful feature that I'm quite excited about that we have launched internally and we use is document search, document comparison, and document Q&A. So that's all in one intuitive product that my team built. And it's been exciting, I would say, to see the varying usages. Because what we did was we launched it out with a small test user base, but it's the organic reach of the tool across a user base of 250,000 odd employees. So there's a lot of feedback you can get there. It's just revolutionized things. I mean, the time saved is shockingly good. You know, if it takes people, I would say, to write a report or go through an entire policy document that's 100 pages just to sum it up, to find the key points or to search for something, you literally save hours of time. And sometimes multiple people doing that. So the benefit has been unreal, and it's been pretty instantaneous, I would say. So it's a real proof point for an organization, and it really helps you to drive further use case improvements.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well. Fran, I want to get your viewpoint on it, but it reminds me of listening to Mustafa Suleyman. So he recently talked about how the pace of change of AI is quickly going ahead, especially with what DeepMind are doing and all the large language models out there. But something that really took my interest, and I made a note of it here. So if one of you in the audience was to do nothing but read 24 hours a day from the day you're born to the day you go on, or through your life, you would probably consume around 8 billion words. Now, to put that into context, today, the most advanced AI is consuming around 8 trillion words every single month. So similar to that point, I'm not exactly sure why that reminded me of it, but how quickly you can understand documents, understand what a use case is around a business, understand business documents is very exciting. And Fran, I'd love to, not to cut in with that comment, but just see why you're building and ask you the same question.
Yeah, sure. So I'll take that. I do need it. So yeah, in Web of Science, we're building a research assistant, which is, and actually, Etienne said earlier, really important to make sure you know what your users want. I think actually our journey with AI, and Gen AI specifically, has really spoken to that. We started off looking at generative AI, for researchers on, academic content, academic literature, and also in our segment as well, the customer base that we're looking at, there was a lot of concern around students and, students are just going to use Gen AI, they're going to use ChatGPT just to write essays and get the answers. And actually what we've found through working with our users, we've got our tool, the Web of Science Research Assistant, is being now used in 16 universities worldwide. What researchers really want is not a tool that's going to get them the answer. So what they want is to be able to interrogate it. They want to be able to understand some of the information that we're giving them. Web of Science is a really information-dense tool, quite like Pendo. It gives you a lot of graphs, a lot of information. Being able to actually understand it, interrogate it, and have it kind of summarized and easily understood, that's actually what our users really want. And so we've really morphed the tool that originally started off as a kind of very much a chatbot, it answers questions, into this thing which kind of can build you visualizations. It can help you interpret them as a researcher, and that's been really, really our users have responded really well to that, and we're getting really good feedback.
Yeah. It's really exciting. I know we said before as well that we could talk around these topics for ages. And I mean, the amount of change we're seeing, what people are building, what they're building it into. I mean, some of the conversations I've had recently, there have been questions such as, will it solve the climate crisis? Or will it be something about misinformation around AI-generated content in upcoming elections? Or will it be something, how can it help me improve the spend on my marketing budget? These are all very good questions of how AI can help. But moving in the direction of what I've just asked, there's also a lot of risks with AI, which people seem to look at arguably more than the opportunities, which is interesting because when you think about it, there's a Chinese proverb word called crisis. And if any of you know, that word means danger, but it also means opportunity. And I think it's very relevant to what we're seeing with AI at the moment. So I'd ask again, starting with you, Etienne, when you're looking at the opportunities you're building or the products you're building in your business and the opportunities that are rising, how do you decide what to build? Like, where do you go? What's the strategy for it? What do you consider? Is it looking at what the customers want? Is it the partners? Is it a mixture? How do you get to that?
For us, so at Algolia, we help our customer put their inventory, their article, their database in movement. What we see from our customer is that they don't know today exactly what they want. And the problem we are trying to solve is help them experiment. So we are at an edge of experimentation. So it means we need to move fast. We need to keep an eye on the consumer. Otherwise, we will not survive the bubble. So the opportunity for us is really building the infrastructure so our customer can experiment fast and figure out what matters for their consumer. So it means building an easy way to build Gen AI, RAG, and all this sort of stuff, but also monitoring system, building explainability so they understand what happened. If the AI is hallucinating, we can explain why, and the ability to iterate fast on building new experience for consumer.
Oh yeah, I don't know that. Thanks. I'll get it one day. So for us, it really resonated with me when I heard John T earlier today, because I am on that S-curve already. Like, as an organisation, Citi's on the S-curve.
Yes.
So we're already kind of transitioning the organisation into one where generative AI is embedded in day-to-day process, productivity gains, very aware of the risks, and building guardrails around risks. And having controls in place that we are able to tweak, and we're also able to measure how generative AI is being used. I would say it's also our CEO, Jane Fraser, being very vocal publicly and to the organization about we're on the Gen AI sort of experimentation phase, and we really buy into it. We're really invested, but as an entire organization. So really the culture shift internally has been great because, you know, it's always been a sort of dream to be in an organization where everyone feels they can experiment, and they've got the time to do it now because they've literally been told from the top down, you've got the time, you've got the, you know, partner with your tech company departments, partner with your product departments, and really try and work together to solve any of your day-to-day problems effectively. That's how it's been, I think, as less friction as possible, but at the same time, it's been working with risk and compliance and making sure, you know, in a normal sort of cycle, getting sign-off to do something could take, you know, maybe weeks or like months, etc. But it's working out fast-track processes so that you can get use cases onboarded quickly, they can be governed effectively, and as models improve and as more features come out, is how do you bring those into the organization as quick as possible? And it's all that process around, you know, the enterprise level process, which is really important, but getting the buy-in from the top really helps.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What do you think, Fran?
Yeah, so similarly at Clarivate, we have a kind of centralized data science team, and so initially, you know, there's a ton of use cases, internal, external use cases we were kind of thinking about when this technology came out. But one of the things we developed a strategy to kind of build an internal generative AI platform. Again, you know, it can switch models, it can give product managers, you know, cost reports if you want to prototype something rapidly, and you know, dedicated development and hack days for programmers to start to kind of get to know this software and play around with it. You know, working with our data scientists, they're staying at the cutting edge of this, and I think, you know, as product managers, it's really, really important to have a great relationship with your data science team, because they're the ones that are going to be, you know, reading the research articles. They're the ones that are kind of going to know the ins and outs of the models that can kind of really help guide that. So, you know, one of the things we found as a challenge, we have a very large product portfolio. We have, you know, some products that are very large, you know, very mature, some products at the start of the growth cycle. And so how do you prioritize the opportunity that you've got? But having this platform's really allowed us to kind of democratize that generative AI capability so that we can give every product team in Clarivate the opportunity to work with these tools, but in a safe way where there's, you know, a centralized team who can help support with the legal and licensing, with prompt engineering, with the risks of bias and hallucinations, for example. So that's really helped us.
Yeah, I have a follow-on question to go back down as well. So do you think I'm sure some of you might be experimenting with AI at the moment. In fact, how many of you are experimenting with AI at the moment, with Gen AI in your products and your business?
Wow, that's quite a lot.
Quite a few of you. So the big question I always see is, when is it ready to launch? And obviously the reason Google got involved with Gemini was because of the advances OpenAI were making, which is a very clear thing that's being discussed at the moment through the media. How would you say, or what do you think is the right time to launch? Is there a right time to launch? Is it something you need to consider?
Yeah, I mean, so my personal experience, that what we found is that it's not the kind of KPIs, the things that you're going to be measuring and tracking aren't necessarily hugely different from a typical product, right? It's ready to launch when you've got users that can't get enough of it and want to come back and use it again and again. It's ready to launch when we're B2B2C, so we're talking to the customers, the librarians who are purchasing Web of Science, and they're saying, you know, this is great, you know, how my users love it, how can you help me roll it out further in the library? Those are the kind of conversations that we're having, and that's the point at which we know, you know, we're ready to take something out into the market. And so it's not, for me, it's not hugely different. I think the one thing that I would say is a little bit different is we have slightly elongated the timescales when thinking about when we're ready to launch in terms of repeat usage. Reason we've done that is because the tools are non-deterministic, right? So they might bring different answers up if you come back again and again over time. So we wanted to make sure that, you know, that users weren't, you know, coming back and then over time it would change, or the model would change, or kind of change slightly, and that would change the behavior. But in reality that hasn't happened, and we've really seen great buy-in.
Yeah. I think, that's very similar. I think my approach has been, as a product leader, and this opportunity that's been provided now where all the users are internal, they're all experimenters, so to speak, is firstly to embed product mindset more holistically, because it's surprising, obviously, in the product space, we are very well versed in product mindset, but when you go more wider into different job families, it's not a prevalent or very natural way of thinking. So for myself, it's really getting everyone comfortable with, I'm going to release something that is not polished. As long as it technically works, I just need people to use it. I want everyone to be on board with bugs and kinks and telling me what actually works or not. And it's that sort of mindset enterprise-wide that really helps grow a generative AI product, even if it's the responses coming back, or maybe it's not intuitive, and then realizing actually, there's a whole language and vocabulary that just normal, I would say non-Gen AI professionals or product people don't know about. How do you make the products very intuitive? And there's a cultural thing there as well, but it's really get it out quickly and get everyone on board with feeling out the Gen AI sort of space, because it's only something that some sort of employees and the wider enterprise read about in the news, or they read about, as articles. So they're not in the thick of it. So you have to kind of take yourself out of there and really get it into the hands of employees as quick as possible.
Yeah. How are you seeing, Etienne? How are you looking at deploying and strategy?
Yeah, so it very much depends on the type of product you're building, the industry you're in, if you're B2B or B2C. But really, a rule of thumb, as early as possible. If you decide to build something, you want to figure out as early as possible if you get some sort of traction. And you want, especially with AI, you want to learn with data. Your model are as good as your data. So put the product in front of a few customers as early as possible. Know there are ways also to de-risk, classic user research and so on. But I think with AI, are able to do some offline testing that could help figure out if a model has a good chance to be successful or not, so that can de-risk launch. But the answer is as early as possible. Until you test it with your data, with your consumer, you will never know if it's a product that is good.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's interesting about what we spoke about it yesterday, about being AI first. So having that kind of mindset towards your product, and I don't know if it's forgetting the customer and focusing too much on, AI, in my view, is not really going to help you unless you've got a valuable product. It's like if I go to McDonald's and I get a burger, that's the key product that you're going to get. And I think there's a lot of companies, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but there's a lot of companies where you're going to buy a product and people are thinking that AI can be their saving grace when it's just like the internet. I know I work on the internet, probably like most of you in this room, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and it's just embedded in my daily life. And I think it's a really interesting point. So I kind of want to see what your viewpoints are, starting with you, Fran, on how businesses are positioning themselves as AI first. Do you think it's the right label to use? Do you think it's the right approach to use? Do you think there's another approach to be using? How do you see that whole thing?
I mean, I think I'm in agreement with you in that, obviously there's huge benefits to be found from using AI, and I think we need our product teams and people around the organization to understand the potential. I think that's for me what AI first really means. I think understanding the potential. That being said, we really need to keep in mind the core customer needs, and that's what we've really found. We find that with researchers, they're not happy with opaque boxes. They want to interrogate things, so we've had to add in layers of transparency on top of the AI capabilities that we've got. But I do think just being aware of the kind of possibilities. One thing that we found with generative AI is actually, it's really sped up the development cycles in terms of you can use it, for example, to create data sets where traditionally, if you're doing AI ML, machine learning, you'd need to have a data set already, whereas you can use generative AI to create data sets for you and that structured data in a way that then you can use it to kind of, do kind of more traditional AI. So that's a really good example of, you need to be thinking about what the potential benefits of AI are. But I do think customer needs, again, need to be front and center. And you're right, unless you've got a product that's meeting those customer needs, you know, it doesn't matter how much AI it's got in it.
Yeah. I remember one of the things I was thinking about is when I was watching the golf and I saw a product for a driver and it said now powered with AI, and I thought, Jesus, it's getting to every single product that's across the range, and how many different industries it's getting into. But I don't know if you see it a different way, Tariq. Like, is there something movement to build this AI?
I love my AI toothbrush. It doesn't leave my side. But in terms of what we're doing internally, I would say, first of all, it really transforms the way you operate. It's always better to start internally because it is lower risk anyway. I think it's a good model to adopt as product managers. If you're facing challenges doing something externally, why not try building it internally as a concept to really get buy-in? I always have that sort of mentality. But I think also it's seen at Citi predominantly as an aid, a human aid, as in what we're doing here is trying to assist employees at Citi to free up their time to do more valuable things, and that's really the key driver right now, and obviously that will evolve over time, but the driver right now is to give people the productivity time they need to help think of creatively of ideas to drive the business. And a lot of the time, people are working at 90% capacity and they don't have that time. So it's giving people that time. I think that's what the predominant focus is.
It's really important. Etienne, what do you think about it?
So I think AI first is a bit of a buzzword and a semantic discussion. I'm not sure what it means. A while ago, we were talking about mobile first, and the reason we were saying that is because consumers wanted to interact on mobile, and therefore we say, yes, that's what we do as a company. And after that, or before, there was API first, and that's because enterprise wanted to interact with API. No, I'm not sure consumers say, hey, I want to interact with AI. So, okay, they want to try ChatGPT. But when they go on Farfetch to buy fashion, they will say, I'm not going on Farfetch because I can't interact with AI. So, in that sense, it's a bit of a buzzword. No, when I look at the definition, it's a bit, we are an AI-first company because everything we do, we think we will do it with AI first. And it's questionable whether you should do that. I'm sure there are use cases, but I was talking with a big consumer retail company in Europe, and they were like, we want to do a chatbot because I think it will be great. Consumers want that. It can create great shopping experience. And I said, okay, do you have a chat today? And say, yeah, we have a chat. We tried, and you put human behind. Yeah, we have human behind. And how many people engage with that? And it was something like less than 2 digits. And my question was, why do you think a robot will make people click more on the chat button? So now if you say, it's an AI, people will want to try it. But the question is, do people want to chat? Not do they, in some situations, they might want to chat with a robot if you want to buy toilet paper or whatever. Yeah, it's better to chat with a robot if you have questions on that. But I think really the question is, we want to be consumer first, and figure out what your consumer want, and if what they want first is to do a chat, then you're chat first, you're not necessarily AI first. So it's a bit of a buzzword. I'm not sure exactly what it means. I think it's interesting to always think, okay, what are the potential that this new technology is enabling for the business? I think it fosters creativity. There are a lot of new use cases that are enabled with Gen AI. Potentially you can review use cases that didn't work in the past that may work with Gen AI, but that really the question we need to ask.
Yeah, or maybe in the future we'll be quantum first at the way that's going. So that'll be a new buzzword to latch on to, which we can all get excited about. But it makes me think about how, as you were saying, Etienne, about the change, and we've all been saying, Tariq and Fran as well, to look at, like, do you remember, I wasn't around by this point, but when the calculator came out and everyone lost their marbles about it and they were calling for it to be removed from schools? And I mean, now you've got the release from Apple showing how you can basically sum it up on your screen in real time. It's amazing to show what happens. And I believe there was an article that did the rounds on social media saying, if you remember it, about internet is just a fad, it's not going to be a thing. And I honestly look at AI being the exact same tool, enabler of what you're already doing, but enhancing it, either making you faster, better, more accurate. And I remember I spoke to someone and they said, Tom, I'll buy anything if it gets in your domain, if it gets me information faster. Like that is a key critical component. And I think it's so true. Imagine getting faster information on your customer, faster information on on a problem, or if you've been hacked and you've had a site and you're doing penetration testing to understand what's going on. Those are all real situations. But I want to look at the next point, which is expectations. So this is a point which is really exciting at the moment. I'm sure you've all got very interesting views on it. And I think the expectations from teams, customers, and partners building AI, what they are, how you should measure those expectations. And I always think there's always going to be problems. Like me running the AI journal as a business, I can tell you, there's never a problem-free day. I'm either heading towards a problem, in a problem, or just coming out of a problem. Like, it doesn't stop. And I believe it's the same situation with these products. But my question is, what have been most important factors, starting with Etienne, on managing expectations when building AI products, either internally or externally? I'd love to know.
Yes. Well, internally, we are very much tech-driven company, so people are aware of the expectation with AI. I think it's in terms of strategy. Again, we are experimenting a lot. So when you have a sales team on the other side that try to sell product, managing expectation is saying, hey, I know you want a date, but right now we don't know exactly what works. We are experimenting, and the nature of that is that we can't give you an exact date on when we'll deliver that Gen AI things that work. So that can create some wrong expectation internally. But with the customer, I think it's about being very honest about what we know and what we don't know. I've seen an interview recently by the CEO of Google, who was saying, hey, we are still experimenting with Gen AI. So, the world is experimenting at the moment. So it's really about that, about being honest about what we know, where the world is going. Everyone is experimenting. And the second thing is what we see from our customers. They believe Gen AI will change something. They don't know exactly what, but they very much want still to have control, to understand what's happening. So on our side, managing expectation is providing the tool for them to understand how AI is used and how it impacts the experience, whether it's a visible AI experience or not. When I say hidden AI experience, when we talk about ranking, when you do a search and so on, you have a lot of people in the company, merchandiser, editor, who want to know, hey, you've put that item at the top of the search. I want to understand why. And quite often the answer can't be, the AI decided that. Especially with, at the moment, all the hallucination thing. People are also rightfully skeptical about AI.
Yeah. I would say the expectation setting. I would say to every product manager in this room, if you're embarking on this Gen AI journey, you have to be the one taking everyone else in the business, whoever your stakeholders are, on the journey. You have to have that mindset, because they're not going to know the ins and outs of what is entailed in the Gen AI journey, but you've got to set that expectation up front. So you need to let your stakeholders know that you're embarking on this journey, which is going to need collaboration with them in terms of the expectation, but also in terms of how things are going to develop. So really get on the front foot of that to set expectation. Because, for example, if I'm finding, as doing this at Citi, is that because it's been so successful, users and stakeholders are coming back saying, I want this now, I want the next thing, I want this to be more performant. But then underneath that, there's a lot of layers. There's, you need to get GPUs, you have to have the infrastructure, and that could take a while to get the infrastructure in place if you want more performance, more power. So you have to be very transparent, but also set that sort of relationship. Don't be led as much, but educate and take them on that journey as well. And then that makes the expectation settings less of a disappointment and more of this is the reality of being in an experimental product. And I think that helps a lot. So it's really, this is very different to typical product management in that sense, where you have to help set the expectations up front and take people on a journey, educate them at the same time as building.
It's important. What do you think, Fran?
So from our perspective, I think externally, we've seen, I mean, immediately there was a huge appetite for generative AI specifically in the academic space. Interestingly, there was a slightly different focus kind of regionally. So we've got a lot of customers in China. I went to see a university in China quite soon after ChatGPT launched. And the library director said, you know, we've bought ChatGPT licenses for all of our researchers and students. Like almost overnight, they said, we're doubling down on this. We are into generative AI. And so our customers had expectations of us delivering, you know, before I think internally we had really figured out what we were going to do. So, I mean, I would agree with Tariq. I think, you know, really, really soon after that, we, you know, obviously set a kind of strategy, a direction of travel, internally organized ourselves in a way that we could kind of really quickly bring those types of technologies to market. Yeah, that's really been our kind of experience. I think the expectation from customers has been really high. I do think, interestingly, like we've seen in this room a little bit, there's fatigue with talking about Gen AI in the product space. We're seeing that in our customers as well now. You know, that you get eye rolls when you get another presentation about generative AI. So I think there's definitely, you know, we're at that dip in the curve for sure.
Yeah. And I want to come back to you again with what we were saying earlier. There's a big skills gap, and I mean, a lot of companies are doing a lot to build that skills up. I mean, on Tuesday, I was at Salesforce for their AI center opening. So it's basically a digital learning hub for their developer network to be able to upskill. And that's just one example. There's plenty of examples out there that companies are doing tremendously well at. And I'd love to know, there's the first part of the question. I've got to be conscious of time to respect everyone's time. But what kind of upskilling is required amongst teams to build AI features and products? And I know we're looking at it as a difference, and I think it's very relevant to why we're here today. The products, the data teams, and maybe teams outside of it. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a huge amount of upskilling required. I think just in terms of understanding the types of technologies, we talked about prompt engineering here in the room today, and giving people the time and the space to you know, spend on those, to understand them, to think about how these types of technologies might be used in their products. I think for the data teams as well, and also for every single one of our engineers, the expectation is now that they will understand, you know, the potential for generative AI, have access to the internal APIs we've got set up to try and tie out those tools. So it's not the idea that it's not just a data scientist job to understand them and to be able to use them is absolutely kind of forefront in that strategy.
Yeah. Tariq, what do you think?
I've been doing generative AI product development now for over a year. So I've seen the skills gap for real. I understand it. I've tried to plug it. And the first thing I would say is to Fran's point, is around the vocabulary. So you don't, as a product manager, don't be scared of having to be technical. You just need to understand the abstract vocabulary first. Because when you're talking to people in, say, like data science, as you mentioned, or engineering, you just need to understand, you know, what a transformer does. If you're working at that level, or at an application level, you need to understand, right, I can change the temperature of a model and make it really wacky or make it really concise. So you have to just understand those sort of terminologies first. That's the first upskilling challenge. Second of all, with engineers, it's more about the predominant language is Python. So it's really firstly upskilling in Python. So every engineer, whether they're a Java engineer or Go engineer, they should be learning Python. And that should really help with the prompt engineering side, but also building. And then for the general, I would say the general audience of your company, it would be knowledge around when to use the right model, because that's necessarily not apparent. So for example, if you've just got GPT-4o in, and then you've got a lower model that costs a lot less, and you're asking a really basic question, you should be using the cheaper model, not the more like enhanced one, I would say. So it's how do you change the behaviors around how people use it, make sure you're not overspending. And that, I think all those challenges I've been kind of working through the last year.
Yeah, important challenges.
So I agree with everything that has been said. I think we are a tech company. We've been doing AI for, as far as I know. The thing I'm observing, however, is there is a new person at the table of the product trio. Before we had product manager, UX, engineer and knows there is an AI person. So at Algolia, we have a VP of AI working with us, and every team, they have a machine learning engineer or data scientist in the leadership team. So this creates new interaction, new way of working, but this fosters also new way of thinking, which is great. So I think that's the way companies are adapting at the moment. I think more and more at C-level, we will have AI dedicated people, whatever you want to name that. So that's, I think a big trend I'm observing at the moment. Yeah,
it's a big trend. And I think to all your brilliant points as well, I'd be curious to know, who in here, the businesses that you're involved in, who has a CTO or a CIO in their business today? Okay. And how many have a CAIO, a Chief AI Officer? Any? One person at the back. So that's, or maybe two, I don't know if that was a hand up, but it's very important to, or it's interesting to see, it's not important, it's interesting to see how that's going to change with people's job roles, what they're considering, AI strategies, AI roadmaps. And I think that's the big thing. I think when we researched it, it was something like 78% of companies that we surveyed said it's in their next 12-month strategy to be able to hire a CAIO and give them full responsibility over an AI hub strategy roadmap, which is really exciting. But I do realize that we're here to learn about some use cases, or I'd like to learn about some use cases. So I'd love to come to each of you, and not necessarily use cases as such. I mean, it's always fun to see whether it's from a content side, a managing payment side, or whatever the process is you're implementing AI. Maybe either as a use case or experiments. What are some of the best ways or best things you've experimented with AI in your business? Etienne, I'll start with you first. Or what's got you most excited about experiments that you're running?
Yeah, for us, we are building a platform for consumer to build Gen AI. So we provide all the tool to retrieve the information, summarize the information, whatever you want to do with AI, vectorizing your information. So I'm very excited about all our customers that want to experiment. Most of them want to try stuff. And I'm pretty confident that something will come out of that Gen AI will transform one way or another consumer experience. Some people say it won't, but with the number of ideas that are out there, I think it will. And for me, it's very difficult to predict what will the future look like. If you ask me, I'm sure we will all end up having some sort of voice AI assistant. I can see that coming. Chat will be more and more important because suddenly customer support is even more scalable. We are doing a lot of attribute enrichment with Gen AI. This definitely is already successful. It enabled us to enhance the search experience because the more we provide information about a product, the more people can find it. So these are the sort of use cases that I see are already working. But what I'm most excited about is what will come next, what I don't know today, and the ton of experiment we see at the moment.
Yeah. Tariq, what do you think?
I think what I'm super excited about and what I'm doing at the moment is really, we've gone from a natural progression from AI assistant to then co-pilot, and then the next stage after that is obviously the Gen AI agent, which is, I would say, able to take action and really automate a lot of processes, but also create virtual team members to an extent. So as an individual contributor, having, say, 5 personas around you that can probably check your work, suggest improvements, or actually make those changes for you, and make sure you're abiding by the compliance checks. It's almost supporting you with a whole team, virtually, all made from Gen AI, and I think that's super exciting, and it'll only be a matter of months before that is really embedded.
Oh, excited for that. Ryan, what do you think?
One really interesting use case, we've got a product in the Clarivate portfolio called Alethea, and it's aimed at students. And you know, we work with teachers and librarians around the world. And obviously, when ChatGPT came out, everyone thought, oh my goodness, every student set an essay question is now just going to go to ChatGPT, put in the essay question. There we go, and we're going to get 20, 30 identical essays. Yeah. Alethea basically gives a student a text and kind of of interrogates them as they go, so has a conversation with them around the text to understand actually how much they've understood of the text, and it uses generative AI to do that. And I think that's a really interesting example of where, you can take the education space and think, oh, actually generative AI has potentially kind of ripped up the model, but actually we can use it in a way that's going to meet the needs of the teacher and the student, i.e., the teacher needs to know the student's got an understanding of the work. Through having this conversation with this AI, it can kind of do that, basically. So yeah, I think that's a really good example of quite a cool use case.
Well, it's always exciting. It's always interesting to see different use cases. We are at time, so it's been really eye-opening to me. It always is to understand exactly what the next steps look like, how products are coming onto the market, how they're AI infused, and what the next innovations are going to be. I mean, it's moving so fast, and obviously we're in media, so we're trying to cover all of it. It fills my head with a lot of wild ideas every day. But I just want to say thank you to all for attending, and thank you, Fran, Tariq, and to Etienne for being on this panel with me. It's been a lot of fun, so thank you.